45 becomes 47. America inaugurates a new president. But what's next? Here's what happened and why it matters as we launch into a brand new chapter. I'm Jenna, and this is SmartHER News. We witnessed a historic day on Monday with the past and the future bumping into each other literally in the tight quarters of Capitol Hill. And I have a quick summary of what to watch or what to take away from President Trump's inaugural address. But first, let's just take a moment to talk about what didn't happen. For example, we did not have a drunk president take the oath of office. We did not have an unruly inaugural open house at the White House where partiers stood on furniture. We did not have a 2-hour speech where a president insisted on standing out in the cold without a proper jacket, apparently, and then reportedly wore those same cold, wet clothes to inaugural balls, and then later got sick and died. Yes, all of this actually happened in American history, and without history, our headlines have no context. And I mentioned these past inaugurations when we're super hyper-focused on the one in front of us as a reminder that what's actually remembered from this time may surprise us all. It's kind of tough to predict. By the way, it was President Johnson who had typhoid fever, who tried to dull his pain with whiskey and got completely sloshed and slurred his oath of office in 1865. President Jackson had that enthusiastic crowd in 1825 at the White House. And it was President Harrison who died of what's believed to be pneumonia about 30 days after his inauguration in 1841. None of this I knew until today, and I share it to delight you with some American history and to ground us all at a similar starting point, because we are witnessing history together. Here's a few items that make this inauguration historic, regardless of political ideology. For example, the weather is one. Weather caused the inauguration to be moved indoors for the first time in several decades. And weather has been a factor in previous inaugurations. Weather delayed our very first inauguration in American history when President Washington and others could not easily travel to New York City, which was the seat of government at the time, because of weather. So the oath of office, the inauguration, was moved from March to April. And they could do that because they were kind of just making things up as they went along. After the oath of office, President Washington ended up talking to lawmakers behind closed doors, delivering a speech. And that set a precedent for speeches to happen since then, including the speech that we saw on Monday. President Trump became the very first president since Ronald Reagan to take the oath of office inside the Capitol due to weather. He's also only the second president to take the oath of office on the federal holiday of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. President Clinton was the other. And President Trump addressed this synergy of different events, the inauguration and the federal holiday, early in his speech.
Today is Martin Luther King Day, and his honor, this will be a great honor, but in his honor we will strive together to make his dream a reality. We will make his dream come true.
It was a quick mention, but an acknowledgement that really cascaded into a few other themes that President Trump tackled. He delivered a speech which almost doubled in length from his speech in 2017. So he talked for about 30 minutes. But here's just a few of the first moments of the speech, because I wanted to share how he set the tone for not only his address on Inauguration Day, but really for his administration.
The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
President Trump revisited this idea of a golden age at the beginning and the end of his speech. And in between came a laundry list of a lot of different items and policies and priorities and ideas. The very first policy topic addressed was about our U.S. borders. And he said he's going to declare a national emergency there and label drug cartels foreign terrorist organizations, amongst other things. With these policies, both of these would unleash new resources to use at the borders. Exactly what they look like, we don't know. He also talked about combating high inflation and high prices, the U.S. economy very early on in his speech. He talked about declaring a national energy emergency and unleashing oil and gas and that sort of industry to bring wealth to America. He also talked about a bunch of social topics. He talked about the government establishing two genders, male and female. He talked about back pay to military members who are forced out of service if they did not take the COVID vaccine. He talked about moving government away from a system he says that's really created on race and gender over merit. So he covered a lot of ground. The tone and the content of the speech was ambitious. It was optimistic, it was steady, it was direct. He spoke very slowly. And what I would say is one of the big takeaways is what he said on Inauguration Day was very consistent with his campaign. Here's what I think we need to emphasize, though. What we heard is what's on his radar. Whether he hits those targets depends on more than just him. Some of what he says, like executive actions at the border, can happen unilaterally. But that doesn't mean he won't be challenged legally in courts or slowed down in any way. For other priorities, he's going to need Congress, for money or for new legislation. He talked about putting the stars and stripes on Mars as part of America's exploration. But where is he going to get the money for that? Appropriation of your tax dollars happens through your representatives, and that's uniquely a power of Congress. President Trump really set the table, if you will. He gave us a menu of different items. How he prioritizes them and how he strategically tries to accomplish them is really the next big question. By the way, something interesting happened during the inauguration ceremony. We got some news. So let me set the stage. President Trump is talking early in his speech about the weaponization of the Justice Department. Clearly, he feels that the Justice Department was weaponized against him because of his political posture.
The vicious, violent, and unfair weaponization of the Justice Department and our government will end.
Right before he talked about this, former President Biden issued a final pardon of his presidency. Now, he did a few final pardons really early in the day for Dr. Anthony Fauci, for example, or lawmakers that were part of the January 6th committee. That got some news. But these pardons were happening while everyone was focused on the inauguration ceremony. And these pardons were for Joe Biden's siblings and their spouses. And he said it's not because, and I'm paraphrasing here, not because of current prosecution or admission of wrongdoing, but because now former President Joe Biden says he fears politically motivated investigations. That's quite the juxtaposition of words from one president and the actions of another, and a big question about America's legal system moving forward. It was, according to what we know right now, President Biden's final act in office. Interesting. Now, I would be remiss to not mention the social aspect of the inauguration, the fashion, the parties. And sometimes I find myself feeling a little guilty paying attention to, what the First Lady is wearing when we have a whole bunch of really big issues that deserve our attention. But it turns out this fascination isn't new either. President George Washington attended his first inauguration solo. Martha Washington, his wife, made her own 11-day trip from Mount Vernon to New York City in early May. And basically, every place she stayed along the way gave her a different celebration because she was there. In fact, in Philadelphia, apparently she did a whole bunch of shopping, including shoe shopping. We know some of that. So many things change, but many things stay the same. There's a fascination with the presidency, not just the public-facing part of the presidency, but the personal one too. And that's been well established throughout the course of American history. So from serious to more surface level, we have a beginning of a new chapter. What comes next really is to be determined, and I look forward to experiencing that together with you. Thank you for your support of quick, concise, nonpartisan news, SmartHER News. I'm Jenna. I hope you have a great week. Bye.